Landing your dream job is hard, and that's why we're here. A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the organizing committee, I warmly welcome you all to the Know Your Niche session for the computing stream students, presented by Undoubtedly, this evening will be a great opportunity for you all to reveal all the inspiring job opportunities and job requirements in the industry. Also, this will be an ideal platform for you to clear your doubts about the job requirements. To take a nice onset to the session, I would like to invite the chair of StudPro 5.0, Mr. Kavin Madhava, to welcome the gathering.
Audible to all? Yeah. So good evening, everyone. On behalf of organizing committee, I warmly welcome you all to StudPro 5.0, Know Your Niche, presented by IEEE Young Professionals Sri Lanka. I would like to extend a special welcome to our speaker today, Mr. Jehan Vijayasinghe, who will be sharing his expertise on the job requirements and job roles awaiting for you in the stream of computing. Thank you, Mr. Jehan, for accepting our invitation and taking time out of your busy schedule to join with us. Also, it's my great pleasure to welcome the chairman of IEEE Sri Lanka section, Professor Pradeep Abegunawardena, and the all executive committee members of IEEE Sri Lanka section. Then I would like to welcome the IEEE Young Professionals Sri Lanka chairman, Mr. Dhammika Marasinghe, Student Activities Committee chairman, Mr. Samika Subisinghe, as well as the sectional student representative, Mr. Vidura Bandara. Last but not the least, I warmly welcome you all to the attenders who are here with us today. StudPro 5.0 awaits to bring you another whole new variety of workshops and another valuable events. Prepare to put you in the best condition possible for your future interviews, followed by a great career fair at the end to get you interviewed by the industry giants. Before we get started, I would like to express my sincere appreciation for all of you who generously helped us make this event come as a success. I hope that you will be all left with something of value for your journey ahead after completion of this event. I welcome you all once again for the session and hope that you all will have a great time ahead. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Kavi. A small reminder to all of you, from our speaker, please drop them in the Slido. So, without any further delay, let me introduce the guest speaker of today's session. A tech entrepreneur, product development specialist, a startup coach, and a business consultant. He currently works at Surge Global and has experience in building innovative products for local and international markets. He also co-founded Igniter Space in 2016 and so I'm extremely honored to welcome Mr. Jehan Vijayasinghe. Warmly welcome and over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Namati. I hope I'm audible. Can you guys hear me? Good evening to everyone, and thank you so much for joining in this session. I hope to be able to, within this 1 hour of time, impart some of my experiences and different knowledge that I have gathered over the past while working in the IT industry. Before I do that, I'll give you guys a very brief intro to myself. I think you gave us a bit of an intro in terms of my profile, but I will basically touch base on the areas of experience that I have, and then I will basically give you guys a structure of what kind of knowledge sharing is going to happen today. So I actually started my career as a software engineer myself. When I was a kid, unlike a lot of other kids my age at that time, I knew exactly what I wanted to be when I was maybe 10 years of age. And that was, I wanted to be rich. I wanted to be rich. Why? Because I came from a middle class family. and my family had to go through quite a bit of financial struggle when I was a kid. So I really saw what finances or money can do to a family in terms of making the well-being better. So because of that, I wanted to figure out a way that I could actually be successful and be financially stable, right? Back at that time when I was a kid, the role models were people like Mark Zuckerberg or Bill Gates or Steve Jobs, actually tech entrepreneurs. I didn't know the word entrepreneur by that time. I knew that these guys had created some new tech product, some company, and through that they've received a lot of success. When I saw that, I started developing a liking towards technology, because what I saw was technology, especially programming. You can do it by yourself at home. You don't need, any help from anyone else. You can, if you have the passion, you can do it by yourself, right? Learn at home. And fairly less resources are required. And of course, not just that, I did have a big passion for engineering since I was a kid. I love to think, I like to take things apart, put things back together. So because of that, I did have the passion, and this is something I'll speak to you guys about today, how you discover your passion. But so that was my passion. I was passionate in engineering, and coupled with my desire to be rich or financially secure, I knew I needed to start my own company someday. I knew I needed my own company. And the way that I saw myself going towards that was by being a tech entrepreneur, by building something using technology, which is why I started tinkering with technology at a very young age. I got my Java certification when I was OCBJP when I was 15. I had a lot of experience working with JavaScript, all the newest frameworks at that time. And by the time I entered university, IIT, that's where I studied, I already had like a lot more experience than my colleagues. So that's how I started. I started as a developer. After 2 years of studying, uh, I was still quite young because I went to Lyceum, so I finished my A levels at a very younger age. So after my first year, I got a break in IIT. There's a small break, like 3 months, and in those 3 months, I got to work as an intern at a company, a small startup. At that time, that's where I think everything changed, because the moment I started working, the moment I was not just learning, not just being and not just focusing on the academics. I started learning because for the first year I was the batch top, highest GPA. The moment I started working, that completely changed me. Then I figured out, okay, it's in my hands. My success is basically in my hands. Like if I have the skill, I have the passion. So if I put in the time, if I put in the commitment, I can control my destiny. I figured that out, and I knew I could do that by actually working. So what I did was I didn't go back to second year. I stayed another 6 months with the company. Uh, then started deteriorating with my studies. Uh, and eventually went back to the second year much later on, 6 months later. But I was able to catch up because I had the prior background. And in my third year, I had a mandatory internship of 1 year, and I didn't go back to the startup. I wanted to try something else, so I joined a larger company, 99X, and I worked there as an intern for a couple of months. When I worked in a couple of months, then I realized, okay, I'm just working here. I'm developing code for a different company, and that's still totally fine. But I knew that I wanted to do something of my own. That's when I actually created my first company called Ignited Space. Basically, I combined my love for technology and my love for education, and I created a technology education platform, a school for small kids to learn robotics. I created that when I was in my third year of university. Fourth year was a big transition period for me. And for the last after that point on, for about 6 years of time, I basically scaled Igniter Space from a very small thing that I was doing into a company which had a revenue of a valuation of close to $10 million in just 5 years. So that's basically my story in terms of being an entrepreneur as well as experiment with my passion for product engineering. But we weren't building products. It was a service company where we created a curriculum to teach kids about technology. So I created a product company called Product Tavern. I combined two things I love, products and the tavern. And I created the name Product Tavern. And basically what I started doing was I created a model where anyone can come to me with just a product idea, right? And I basically do the end-to-end product engineering. I created a team of people, and Product Tavern was founded about 3 years ago, and it's still running. And so that's basically how I ventured back into the software industry. And last year, I decided I want to take a break from Ignited Space, so I stepped down as CEO, and I'm still the co-founder of it. What I did was I came back into the IT industry. Serge was looking to basically, so Bhanuka has been a close friend of mine for a very long time. We started Serge and Ignite Space in the very, very similar time frames. And Bhanuka was basically building a software company within Serge. So he took me in to basically do that. And within the last 12 months, we built a software team which started with just 8 to 12 people, and now it has close to 120. So within the last 12 months, that was what I was basically involved in. And now basically I head the product development of more than 20 plus software products at Surge as well as with Product Haven. So just wanted to give you a little bit of background about myself so that you guys can direct any questions towards me. So getting into the actual content that we want to cover in this 60 minutes, before everything, I just need to tell the ground rules, which is uh, please feel free to unmute yourself or drop a message on the chat. Please, I want this to be a very much an engaging session. I want to be able to part with as much knowledge as possible for you guys, because why I agreed to do this session, and not just this session, but a lot of other sessions that educate young undergraduates or waiting into the IT industry, is because we are having a serious problem in the IT industry, right? And I'm sure you guys know this, and I'm sure a lot of others have told you this. And that is that the IT industry is growing very fast. I'll just give you guys some stats, right? For example, if you look at the overall IT industry at the moment, we are responsible for about 1.8 billion US dollars in export revenue, right? And that's pretty high for an industry. It took the tea industry and all our resource-based industries quite a significant number of time to reach that level of export revenue. Over multiple decades, 20 export revenue in less than 10 years, right? In not less than 10 years, in almost a decade, right? It's a very fast growing industry. It has a high rate CAGR, we call the compound annual growth rate. The growth rate of the industry is absolutely high. And right now, it is the fourth largest people currently in the industry, and we have a year-on-year growth rate of more than 10%. So every year the industry grows by 10%, which is an absolute big amount. Right now the problem, and also I'll tell you about how well. I'm not using any slides, guys. I'm not using any slides today. You can see the way that the Sri Lankan IT industry is positioned is in a very unique way, right? Industries in the region, specifically the Southeast Asian region, and also in the Nordic region as well. Now, the Sri Lankan IT industry is positioned in a very unique way when I say that you have to understand the bit of a the geography around the area, right? For example, the competing industries such as India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Australia, right? Cambodia. These are some of the IT industries, like mature IT industries that we can actually compete with. Now, India is a beast of its own, right? As you guys already know, IT is a big export hub in India. It's basically very well developed. They have product companies, they have service companies, they have technology manufacturing companies. A lot. The IT industry is absolutely developed in India, but still, and if you look at other countries like Bangladesh, for example, different kind of environments in the IT industry. But I'll just compare India to Sri Lanka, right? Because India is, again, it's a big industry. Still, we are able to attract clients, especially from the Nordic region, companies like 99X, Cambio, Creative Software, all of these companies. Not only that, those are just things that come to my mind, but lot of companies are able to bring in these Scandinavian Nordic projects to Sri Lanka, Nordic clients, Germans, Norwegians, Swedish. They expect a very high level of quality. So the Sri Lankan IT industry is able to provide a good quality output with a very affordable cost, right? The thing with India is, yeah, they do have a lot of tech companies, and they're able to provide services, and they do work with international clients, obviously. But we have positioned our offerings at a USP, or a unique selling point, is affordable yet high quality, great communications. Sri Lankan English is one of the most clearest English in the entire world, right? We don't have an accent, right? Our words are very clear, so we are able to communicate with foreign clients very well, right? So these are some of the reasons why the IT industry has been very successful in Sri Lanka. And not only that, right? Uh, so why I'm telling about these things is because you have to be aware of these things, right? Otherwise, because right now, after the end of this session, you guys should be able to take a decision towards where you want to go, right? Because there's a lot to choose in the IT industry. And what I always tell, some, young undergraduate that I meet, or, someone when I go and do sessions in a school is, yes, I believe in you choosing your passion and doing whatever you actually like to do, but, right, if you want to be successful, you need to go where the the successful trends are. And right now, that's the IT industry. And not just right now, it has been for some time, and it's going to be for some time. So the IT industry is set to grow very, very well. And would you rather be a part of a growing industry than a declining or a dead industry? If you guys want to be successful, I'm guessing you always choose the better industry. And obviously, you guys are IT undergraduates, so you already taken the decision. But my point being, this history, this stats is important to understand how the IT industry value offering in Sri Lanka is such that we have high quality yet affordable prices. I'll tell you how the economic crisis is affecting this, but essentially that's the positioning that we have. And the big problem we have is the lack of resources, lack of good resources in the industry, right? Now, for example, search, we hire we hire quite a lot of engineers. And but last week we are actually kickstarting a very, very large project next week. And that's a whole different story of its own. But essentially, we actually flying down the client to Sri Lanka next week. Amidst all of this, we basically rented out a lease and pumped fuel to uh, one of our tuk-tuks, and we have it ready for the client. And I hope the client doesn't die when he's here. That would be a big problem. But essentially, what I want to say is, just for that project, we want to hire about 10 senior .NET engineers. If you may have seen some of the posts shared by Barnack and all, you're willing to pay 500,000 rupees as a referral fee for anyone who would bring in a good resource, right? There's about 5 million rupees just given out for getting good engineers, right? It's extremely hard. And to hire these 10 engineers, we reached the goal of 10 engineers. For the last 2 weeks, I've been running interviews from morning to evening. I've interviewed more than 80 plus people with our tech team members to actually hire. Not even 80, it was much higher than that, to hire this 10 individuals. And there is a big and so there's a problem here, right? Is the problem of not having enough people in the industry, or not having enough people who are qualified, no, not just qualified, has the skill set to be hired, right? So now we did have a different problem 5 years ago, or rather I would say 3 years ago. 3 years ago we weren't even having enough people applying, right? Because software engineering education was still not, it was developed, right, but not mainstream as what it is today. Today we have a lot of private universities, which is great, which they offer. Because for example, when I was doing my degree at IIT, the batch size was about what, 80 students, and now I'm told it's over 200 or so. Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, the industry is growing, education industry is growing. We have more graduates coming out. The problem is the skill level of graduates. And I'll share some of those important things that you need to have to be able to be hired, because it was a couple of years ago the fact that there wasn't enough people applying. So the standards when it comes to hiring someone, or the how carefully we look at when we hire someone, versus now, it has changed a lot just in 2 years time, because now we have more people coming in. Now we can reject, we have a very high rejection rate. For example, search, yeah, very high rejection rate, because we expect a very high quality. And I'm not just speaking for search, I'm speaking for a lot of tech companies out there. And so again, like, there are different types of companies as well. Yeah, maybe we'll get into that in just a bit. So this is the problem that you have. The industry is growing, the demand is growing, right? uh, and yeah, and yes, there is the amount of people who are qualified to get jobs in the industry is also growing, not enough, but it's growing. But the problem is, how do you create the skill set in yourself that you can actually go to a good company and select a good career for yourself, that you can be successful? Because I'm sure all of you guys are here on a Saturday evening amidst a lot of crisis going on outside. Is because you have a kakuma, right? You have some kind of big drive to be successful, right? And that's great that you guys are here. So if you want to be successful, you'd rather take the best chances you've got, right? So that's essentially why it's important that you basically develop some unique skills if you are to be successful in the IT industry. So before I go into those skills, I will now talk about the types of software companies in Sri Lanka, not just the standard product service companies, but I'll go into a little bit more detail. So first classification is that what I just said, the product versus service companies. Now, basically, product companies, and I'm sure most of you guys already know this, so I'm going to skim past this section. So product companies are essentially companies which have their own product that they basically build by themselves, and they launch into a particular market, right? So we have quite a few product companies over here. They build a particular software. There's quite a lot of different types of products out there, and they basically put it into the market. And then you have the service companies, which are essentially companies who do software service projects for external clients. So that is basically the first level of classification: product, service. And of course, a lot of companies are doing it. The most common is the hybrid level. Even, for example, Surge, we have our own products, as well as the service engineering projects are also being catered to. And then, of course, you have a third layer, which is the middleware companies, very less. For example, WSO2, as you guys know, they are a middleware company. And those are the main categories. Then we look at the different tiers, right? So you have companies which have different value propositions, right? You have the top tier, the tier one companies, which are hiring, which are basically catering to customers predominantly, almost 100% overseas. The tier one companies, example, companies like Cisco Labs, companies like now we've seen a lot of companies rising up to the tier one status. Newer entrants like Wiley, for example, or 99X, which has been there for some time, for example. So those are the tier one companies, right? Not only those three, there's quite a lot. WSO2, MIT, Fortitude. And then these companies essentially have, as I said, mostly work with foreign clients. They have a lot of standards and frameworks. Some of those companies are enterprise level companies, right, which are very formal companies, like for example MIT, uh, and that's tier one. Then you have the tier two. So tier one companies are essentially what most of you guys should target to be hired at. These companies are now paying they peg the salaries and pay in dollars. I'm sure you guys know what pegging is. For those who do not know what pegging the salary is, essentially, because of inflation, the value of money dropped, right? So essentially what happens is now these tier one companies do not pay in rupees. Ultimately, they pay in rupees, but your salary is denominated in a dollar figure. For example, if you got 100,000 rupees, uh, most companies use the exchange rate of 200. They brought it down to $500, right? Which is basically 100,000 divided by 200. And then you are actually paid based on that particular salary cycle, is based on the central bank dollar buying rate. For example, if the dollar is 300, you would get 150K, right? So your salary grows with inflation, right? So just imagine that opportunity itself is absolutely amazing to be, it's actually a gift, right? That the IT industry has. Like in Surge, we have this culture of getting together on every Tuesday and having a good mixer with everyone. And sometimes when we are in the rooftop and we're having a drink, we're looking at Colombo, seeing how dead it is, we're like, look, we are actually privileged because our salaries are growing with inflation. We are feeling inflation about probably about 20% compared to rest, even less probably. Why we are struggling right now is because of lack of resources like fuel or electricity, infrastructure issues. Okay, guys, when I said infrastructure, I just remembered I need to plug my laptop because I'm losing power in 30 minutes. Um, Different story. So essentially, what I meant to say is, yes, we are affected, but not as much. These tier one companies are absolutely, it's actually the negotiation power of the employee is higher than the negotiation power of the employer. What I mean by it is they will do whatever it takes to retain good employees. Right? If you are a good employee, they will do whatever it takes. And you can see this different companies do it in different ways. The best way to do it is creating a genuine care for the employee. And yes, there are companies who actually do care about employees, make sure that all their needs are met, right? If you remember during COVID times, these tier one companies made sure that there were food packs delivered to the homes of employees. They got medicine. All of their needs were taken care of, right. And for example, transportation. I remember Cisco Labs is giving lunch every single day when you come into office, so that you don't have to bring stuff from outside. You use Uber Eats and things like that that could potentially have any germs or whatever it is, virus or whatever it is. So a lot of extra things were done. Some of those things were actually extravagant. So I was just telling my fiance, she's working at Cisco Labs. It's a great company, obviously, but there's so much to do for the employees, which is beyond just the salary and the allowance. Example, right? As I said, if they work past 7 p.m., they get meals that they can take home, the taxi is paid for. And it comes to a stage where the employees are not taking it as a luxury. They look at it as a necessity, right? So that's the level of, that's how much these tier one companies have spoiled their employees, right? Again, like it's all in good faith. They want to make sure that the employees are happy and they're being retained. So that's what I meant. Like if you perform well in these tier one companies, you have more power than the employer. You don't good resources. Not only engineer, I've been using the word engineer only, but there is a lot of different career fields in the IT industry, which I will touch upon next. Is to come to work, right? It's working from home. Most of these companies, for example, Surge has been work from home even before COVID. We don't require employees to come into office at all. You can, whatever full crisis of COVID, you can stay at home and work, no problem. extra stuff like, for example, paternity and maternity leave. One of the first companies in the IT industry to actually allow the father also to take the equal number of leaves as the mother when they're having a new child. So the colleagues in other industries, they're like, what? Right? Paid like in dollars, right? So it's absolute win-win. If you're passionate in the field, if you love your job, it's an amazing place to be, right? So that's tier one companies, and again, tier two, tier three. What I meant by, again, there's no hard classification that I meant to just basically show you some differences. Tier two companies are essentially, again, software companies which look at larger projects, but have a mix of both local and foreign. So these companies, I'm not going to give examples of tier two, three, because I don't want to offend any of these companies, but I'll just give you characteristics. Now, these companies sometimes they don't essentially have a very dynamic dollar pegging policy. Maybe they peg in like 2-3 months after dollar inflations. Most companies still pay in LKR. They give a extra allowance, right? So the salary scales are also again from tier one to three. There are different levels. You just need to understand when you're looking at a company, right? Uh, because you need to go to the place where you have the best chance at. Let's just give me a minute. I'm just going to plug my computer. All right, you guys can hear me. Company. So you have to basically decide, because you're a great developer doesn't mean that always the tier one level of large companies may suit you. Some of you may like to work in a for example, I'll give you an actual live example. I won't use a live example. I don't want to offend anyone. Let's take X company. These guys, again, a tier one company, gets paid in dollars, pegged, but they have a very formal hierarchy, right? You need to wear formals when you do go into office. This is all heavily regulated. There's a process for everything, and there's a big hierarchy level. 1, 2, 3 step. There's companies like that. And then there is another company, which is again a tier one company, gets paid in dollars, highly pegged in a very dynamic way, very smooth culture. You can wear shorts to work, right? You can basically uh, you can even drink, right? Same career growth potential. Now it depends on the individual you are. You have to figure out, okay, what works for me. If, for example, I'll take example of me. I'm a very dynamic individual. I like to be with people. I like to be very casual. I don't like a lot of fixed strict processes and regulations. I would be miserable if I went into the A type company, right? But for someone, it could actually work, right? People who prefer a more laid back approach, who's more academic, maybe, I don't know, again, depends on who you are. So it's important that you know that different types of companies exist. You can't expect every software company to be the same. You have the smaller companies. For example, I'll give you an actual example of how I position the product tavern is essentially what I do with product tavern is essentially do product development from scratch. For example, you guys know Rooster, which is a hiring platform. For example, Simple Books, which is a bookkeeping software that we built from scratch. So essentially how I positioned Product Avern is, it is not a tier one, it's not a high paying company. We use mid-tier engineers who are not the highest, I wouldn't say highest skilled. If you're listening to this, they're going to get offended. It's not about the skill level. It's just that, okay, these guys prefer to work in smaller teams. They prefer to have a bit of a more laid back approach. They don't want to, be a fixed full-time employee. Most of these guys are, part-time or freelancing, right? It's a very casual kind of a model. So because of that, I can actually give a lower price to my client because my expenses are low, right? So I have a good unique value offering because there's a lot of software companies out there. So you need to have something unique that you offer. My offering is I'll give you great high quality products for a very low price, right? So and I will give you that expertise of product engineering from scratch. So obviously it's a win. So anyway, my point here was to basically for you guys to get an understanding about the types of companies and how you need to figure that out. Now let's go into the different types of roles in the IT industry. Not just the whole, mostly we've heard of the role of the software engineer or the developer. But as you guys definitely should already know, there are different career tracks in the software industry. And I know this because I've played many different roles. I started as a developer, which is the mainstream, right? The mainstream in the tech industries, of course, the development route, the main technicians. Now, these guys are, of course, the highest paid. And again, these are the guys who have the most negotiating power because these are the ones who control production, right? They are just like the machines are important in a factory. In a tech company, it's these engineers, it's the developers that are really important, right? So that is the main track that you have. And now, as you guys know, the concept of full stack development is very much popular. The reason being technology change is very fast, right? If you are, let's say, very much familiar with a particular framework or a tech stack, chances of it changing, adapting fast is very high, right? So you should be able to dynamically be able to adapt and learn very fast, even you're a developer, right? That's the number one skill you need to have if you're going to go in that track, right? You should be able to learn fast, adapt very, very fast, right? Now, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, we had the very hard classifications of engineers. We would say Java engineers. I'm a PHP engineer. I'm a Python engineer. You would even have jobs, even right now, there is, but it's reducing quite a lot. This is being replaced by the post of full stack engineer, engineers who are able to basically develop code in both front end level applications as well as back end level applications, and who's able to work with any stack, right? But still there are but having said that, you should also make sure that you have a bit of a specialization as well, right? That will depend on the company you work and the projects that you work. For example, you could probably if you're passionate about it, specialize in the Microsoft stack, right? .NET, Azure, all of that. Or you could specialize in the JavaScript stack, the MERN stack. And you can build your expertise over there. You can take the relevant certifications. Or for if you take cloud, for example, you could be an expert in Azure and get the Microsoft certifications, or you could be an expert in AWS and you can get the AWS certifications. So when I say full stack, it's not about being a jack of all trades, but you should be able to dynamically, you should be able to identify a bit of a unique skill set in you and build your portfolio towards that. Now that's the first thing. The second thing, if you want to be successful as a developer, you need to have great communication skills. Right? You should be able to speak very well. Now, yes, I understand there are people with, who don't have less confidence in their. Why I use the word confidence is that's what a lot of people have, not have, doesn't have, right? When it comes to English, right? The IT industry is 100% like predominantly an export market, right? We sell our products overseas, so you should be able to talk the universal language English. Now most people have the problem of having the lack of confidence, right, in speaking, because as I said, most clients, right, and I've worked with clients in the US, Australia, Nordic region, Japan, Germany, a lot of countries, and a lot of these guys, they do understand that we are Now, there's a certain amount of racism here as well, which we need to take it to advantage, right? What I mean is, they understand that English is not our first language, and they will always give us a bit of a leeway when it comes to our speaking, right? So you should basically realize that and be able to confidently communicate with the client. And communication is not just about the language, right? Communication is also about you being able to adapt to a conversation, right? In most cases, what I've seen is engineers are sometimes very awkward on a conversation, right? They only speak what is they ask a question, you just give the answer, that's it, right? There's no relation. You need to be able to form, and this is important not just for the development track. I'm taking track by track, but this is applicable for anyone who's working in the IT industry. If you want to be one of those successful guys, I said, right, a lot of people are applying, we only choose the cream. This is for you to be the cream. You should be able to form a bond with the client, right? You should be able to have a relationship, right? Essentially, there's of course there's a big art to this, but in simple terms, you to make it more human. The connection needs to be more human than more robotic. And when I say the client, not only the client, any stakeholder you meet with. Example, you go to an interview, the first thing we check is not your CV. Yes, of course, we check the CV. We don't check the certifications you have. We look at how well you can communicate that to us. And we ask you, obviously, we ask tech questions. And that's the main thing. We look at how you are able to answer the tech questions. So that's always a foundation. But the second thing is that you're able to communicate well, right? Even if you have bad English, absolutely no problem. You say if they are, if you are not confident about something, say that or ask it again, right? And that's absolutely not a problem. So second thing, you have to develop your confidence if you want to go up in the industry, be successful in the industry, right? And now I'll go to a different track. And okay, I'll take one more thing about education in that field. I think there was a question about doing the BCS certification. Now, one thing that obviously I'm sure most of you guys already know this is the fact that IT industry is skill based. It's not knowledge based. Why I said that is, you may have all the degrees in the world, certifications in the world, that and this paper qualifications, but if you can't develop good code, right, you're worthless, right? You need to focus. And right now we don't give, like most of these tier one companies, most of these, not only forget about tier one, most of the software companies, they don't give a they don't give at all about the paper qualifications you have. And I'm sure you've heard this 1,000 times, and I'm here to validate it by saying yes, it's true. What really matters is you being able to understand things and write good code. Now, for example, some of our best engineers at Surge are still studying, uh, mainly at IIT, still studying, right? They're just starting on the final year project. I'm like, what? Right? You guys are developing amazing quality code, and they're doing the degree just to get the certification. So I was in education for 5 years with my company, guys, because I've worked with all the key education bodies, and I have a massive respect for education. I 100% believe in education. One of the reasons why Sri Lanka has so far we have a successful IT industry is because of our high literacy, good education levels. But education should not be a blocker for you to education is not a blocker, or rather paper qualification is not a blocker for you to be successful in the IT industry. That's important. So what matters is, yeah, you may have your BCS certification, or you may have a first class degree, right? If you may even complete your master's and MBA and then come. But if you can't face the interview well, if you can't show what you've done, there's absolutely no point, right? And that is so true. A lot of people must have told this to you, and that is absolutely true. Instead of doing the next certification, yeah, do the certification. I'm not saying you not to. Maybe do some contributions on GitHub, right? On some open source projects. Maybe take in some pet projects and do them, right? Maybe contribute to, as I said, you can contribute to some of the open source projects. Take part in some hackathons, right? This type of stuff, right? Where you can actually get skills, where you can get some experience. That's absolutely important. And especially in the development track, that is absolutely vital. Let's go into the other tracks because we are running out of time. We want to leave some time for questions as well. Let's look at the next, I wouldn't say the next most, the other most common track is the quality assurance field, the QA field. Now, the QA field has also changed quite a lot. If you take 5 years ago to now, maybe 5 years ago, it's a little bit too early. Mainly when it comes to software, mainly when it comes to QA, the main the new development is test automation, as you guys know. So when we are looking to hire QAs, we are looking at, again, the full concept of the full stack engineer. We don't want to hire automation engineers and manual testing engineers again. If you want to ask, you're passionate in QA, don't say I don't do automation, I only do manual testing, right? Don't say that. Get some skill set in automation, especially. That's my key piece of advice. If you're going in the QA field is also quite high paid, and from the QA field you can go into tracks such as product management, and product management is something that I will speak to you about in detail in a bit. So the QA track is again a very familiar track. Then we have the UX field, right? The UX field is again a very up and coming field, and I tell you why. Because for a long time, we weren't the IT industry of Sri Lanka were just looked at as service providers, right? As a service industry, and still it is predominantly one. When it comes to looking at the industry as being able to build software, when I say build, rather build products, right? That's where we have struggled, and we're still struggling there. So when it comes to getting us to be giving the trust to Sri Lankan companies to design product, right? When I say design, not just the UI UX, but actual design from ground up, especially for products deployed outside, we've had a bit of a backseat for the last in the previous histories, but now it's changing quite a lot. I lost power. I lost power. You guys can hear, no?
Yeah.
Do I have enough battery? Yeah, I do. So that has changed. That we've had outside Sri Lanka. The global market has seen the potential of Sri Lankan design, and we can see a lot of companies now selling this design as a key element of their value offerings. So the UI UX field, the thing with the UI UX field is it's really hard to gauge someone whether they're good or bad in any other way rather than looking at their work and then their portfolio. If you want to go into the UI UX field, it's 100% skill based. There's absolutely, we don't care a single cent about any certificate that you have. It's about maintaining a portfolio. So if you are planning on going to that field, create your own portfolio, whatever the graphics that you've done, websites you've designed. If you haven't done it, go ahead and do it. I saw one undergraduate, one of my Facebook friends, I think she was studying branding, and what she did was she just took some brands which are very popular, let's say TPT, right, Uswata TPT, and she redesigned it and created a new brand, and she just tagged Uswata and posted it. Right? She's not getting paid for it, but she's creating a portfolio for herself, right? And you can show these things as an interview. So this building a portfolio is really important if you're going into the creative field, the UI UX field. I only have a limited time, so I can't go into detail on each fields. I'm going to leave you my contacts if you guys want to contact me and get any one-on-one advice. I'll be happy to help. The next field I want to talk to you guys about is a product software project manager in the future of Sri Lanka. Now, project management is a career track that is not only there in the IT industry. Right? A project manager is basically someone who is able to manage stakeholders and guide the project team towards reaching a particular milestone. That's predominantly what a project manager has been doing. I see this role. I absolutely abolished the concept of project management, especially in terms of the engineering, right? Software engineering teams. Instead of a project manager, as I said, that's what they do. Manage stakeholders. When I say stakeholders, clients, customers, the team, the client and customers, the company, management, the team that is doing it, manage all three, manage their work, time, expectations, and guide the team towards a deliverable. Now, as I said, Sri Lankan market is changing towards not just giving services. level, I would rather have someone who can also run the vision through they do. And now that's where a product manager comes into line, right? And you can see a lot of companies are now switching into hiring product managers rather than project managers. Now, when it comes to project managers, converting into product managers, a key role is the BA element, the business analysis. We have project manager as a different route, and then we have BA as a different combination of these two, right? Combination of project management and BA. Essentially, you are able to conceptualize the product, right? You're able to conceptualize the product. You are able to create a roadmap for it. Example, I'll give you example of a very good case of product management, and you are able to also release it to the market in different phases, right? An example would be, let's say, one who is building a product out their property. I'll just say it like that. It's a simple way. It's not exactly that, but as an example, right? There's a villa. You can buy a villa, split it into 8, and you can buy an individual share, and then you can use it. So the nights you don't use it, you can actually earn an income. Now he came to me with that idea and said, look, this is what I want to build, right? And then as a product manager, essentially what I would do is, okay, I would look at that concept of that final product that needs to be delivered, and I would actually conceptualize it, and I would design it by myself, right? I would figure out the actual features that needs the document, not very not to create SRSs and things like that. Sometimes if needed, yes. And then to actually make it the wireframes again by myself, and then getting together with the development team, creating the architecture for it, and then leading the development team towards building that product. So that is what product management is, and that is a very highly up and coming field. I encourage all of you guys to read up about it, especially if you guys are interested in going into the project management track or the BA track. This So I have a question about DevOps. DevOps is again a new track that has been created. DevOps is basically, how do I say it? Simply said, the infrastructure side of projects is generally managed by the DevOps engineers. When I say infrastructure, what I mean is the different deployments, essentially, for example, manage the infrastructure on Amazon. They would do the deployments. They would look at how the things like the CI/CD pipelines are set up, the continuous integration pipelines are set up. They will make sure the vulnerability assessment, they are properly, the data structures have been built properly. So a DevOps engineer is basically a connection between, right, the actual developer and the product being on production. He's like the middleman to make sure that things are going smoothly. Again, up and coming track, we can see people work in the IT field, forget the engineering field, IT field, going into DevOps. So I'm sorry, but I have to move on, guys. Just a few more things I want to cover. So these are different tracks that exist in the IT industry at the moment, and I hope I covered certain things. I have a question again. Can someone from the business management background? Yeah, absolutely. Even if you have business management background, nothing's stopping you from coming to the IT industry. Nothing's stopping you from even becoming a developer, right? If you are able to grab that skill set, yeah, if you can go into learn programming by yourself into fields like BA, UX, right, product management, right, project management, easier areas to go into. As I said, when I talked about the dev track and overall tracks, mostly when it comes to jobs in the IT industry, does not require you to have a paper-based education. And in addition, these are the technical fields. Also, you have the other fields in the IT companies, right? Example, different marketing, HR, like finance. Now, these fields are also better in, I won't say better in the IT companies, but tracks in the IT companies, you can also reap the benefits that the IT industry has to offer. But there are certain drawbacks also. For example, if you want to go up in the finance field, right? If you want to, become a top finance executive, then being in a tech company which has probably even like, let's say, a larger company like Cisco, probably have like a 5-man finance team, right? Compare that to working in a large investment firm or a bank which has a larger career path. So you may have able to reap the benefits of the IT industry, but maybe your career progression is halted. So again, that ops field is something that you need to think a little bit about, because obviously there is those vacancies, HR, recruitment, things like that as well. Yeah. So essentially, those are the main things that I want to cover today. Ultimately, the decision here is you have to figure out not just where your passion lies, guys. Right? There is a concept called ikigai, right, in Japanese. Ikigai is basically a combination of three things. First thing is what you like to do, right? What you like to do, right? What is your passion, right? What is your, what do you want to be doing in life, right? Essentially. Second thing is what you're good at doing, right? Just because you like to do it, you have to figure out whether you're actually good at doing it, right? And then the third thing is what can you get paid doing, right? You may like it, you may be good at doing it, but can you get paid, right? The ikigai in career, yeah, in career, ikigai can be there in different fields in your life in terms of defining your happiness. But in terms of your career, in terms of choosing a job, this ikigai concept is important. Suggest you read up on it. I'll give you an example. Forget IT industry. Let's say I'm passionate in cooking. I actually am. But let's say I'm passionate in cooking, right? I love watching cooking videos. I love trying new recipes. I love going and eating out in different restaurants, different cuisines. Number one, yes. Second one, am I good at it? Can I cook well? Right? Yeah, I actually can cook well. Right? I can cook different types of cuisines. I can experiment myself. I know the right amounts of spices that needs to go into. Now, the third thing to think is, where can I get paid to do that thing that I love to do and I'm good at doing? Okay, then I figure out what are my career options. Okay, I can be a chef, right? I can get paid as a chef, or I can be a YouTuber maybe, right? To create a YouTube channel and earn through YouTube, right? Or maybe I can be a blogger, a food blogger, right? So the career track is chosen based on those skill sets, right? The ikigai is chosen not just, so a lot of people do the mistake of doing something because either that is in trend. No, you'll figure out what is right for you, which is important, right? And the other side is there, don't just do something because you like it as well, right? If you like it, and for example, I use this formula myself when I was 17 years of age, 16 years of age, as a passion. I had the whole story, I told you guys the story, but I also had a bigger passion for aviation. I loved aviation, still do. And then I used this formula to see, okay, am I do I like it? Yes. Am I good at it? Yeah, I was good at it. I knew all types of aircrafts. I knew how the engines work. I went for holiday courses in Ratmalana. Can I get paid to do it? Now that's where I had the question, because I figured out, look, there's only one national career. If you have, I wanted to stay in Sri Lanka. So if I wanted to pursue higher education, I need to move out of the country. Very less job opportunities. It's a very hard job. You need to go there physically. And then my next choice is the IT industry. So you have to do it for yourself. So there are the two sides. Don't just do things because you like it. Also, don't think that everything suits you, right? There is a area that suits you guys. So I hope you guys got something good out of this session. I'm sorry I'm a little bit over time, but my final giveaway to all of you guys is the IT industry is developing quite a lot. The opportunity your job properly, if you enter the right career, it's like buying it's like winning the lottery. Unlike the lottery, you have to work hard for it, but you're going to be in a much better position than most of your colleagues in other industries, and that is definitely guaranteed. So definitely figure out the right track for you guys. Do a lot of research, ask questions. A lot of people are willing to help, right? And that's something that is great, right? I also had career sessions like this when I was in university, but now the support is even there more, right? A lot of platforms are there for you guys to learn a total different field. Just want to tell this to you guys, I'm also passionate in entrepreneurship education. I have my own education platform called Unicorn Factory, right? You guys can go ahead, just go on YouTube, search for it. You guys want to learn about entrepreneurship and that side of things, right? Because from another great thing about the IT industry is you can be an entrepreneur very easily because you have the ability to build something, right? For be an entrepreneur, that's the key thing. You need to have something new. That's a great thing about the IT industry. Your route to entrepreneurship is open. So I suggest you guys going through YouTube, videos that I've done with so much of experts, so much of actual live entrepreneurs. I'm sure you guys are going to learn a lot. And again, if you guys need any specific help, please feel free to reach out to me. I will leave my contact information with the organizers. Yep, and I will be open for any more questions that you guys have. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Jahani Singha, for those insightful words. So, do you have any time to answer some questions from the Slido?
Oh yeah, I just opened Slido. There's a bunch of questions.
Yeah,
I
that's
have enough time. Yeah. I'm just going to randomly. Okay, there are likes. Okay, I'll choose some of the questions which have
I think it
higher
would be
rating.
great, Mr. Jahan, you could go from the upwards so we can save
Yeah,
time.
exactly. That's what I was thinking. Use that. What technologies have a lot of potential and job opportunities in Sri Lanka? Okay, to answer this question, technologies have potential and job opportunity. Okay, right. It definitely the MERN stack. If you're talking about the engineering track, JavaScript has one of the highest potentials because JavaScript is definitely a full stack language, right? You can develop both front end and server side code in it. So the MERN stack is something that, for example, frameworks like React, right, Flutter, these JavaScript based technology stack is something which is absolutely, they are growing. It's very dynamic. The Microsoft stack, the .NET stack is not as popular, right? But it's again a field of specialization if you're doing it. Again, right? You try. I can't tell you do this. You guys need to try out various things and figure out what you're good at. But essentially, those two I would say are at the top. The specialized areas like Java and all, they're again good stacks, yes, for sure. But again, if you look at overall usage, it's a bit less when it comes to the top tier companies, especially the Microsoft stack and the JavaScript stack. I would say are the most popular in terms of technologies as well as the highest potential and the job opportunities. So I hope I answered that question. Let's go to the next one. I already have developed some web-based app for some small companies. Okay, so this is actually a good question. You've already developed some apps. Now you want to figure out if you can start a company. Now, be very careful when you're doing this. We can see so much of smaller um, software companies, right? A lot. And when I started Product One also, I was really careful doing this because again, there's a lot of competition, right? Now, most of the software project, the small companies get started when the person, I mean, whoever the founder is, has this idea. Okay, look, I can develop some free. I have time. I have a bunch of friends, right, who we can get together and start. We can come up with a cool name, launch a website, register a company, and start providing services. And the biggest mistake, and that's a great thing. The biggest mistake that people do is they start piling up expenses, right? They go ahead and rent office somewhere, right? Generally, before that happens, before the expense part happens, maybe they will land a particular client that will give them a good amount of income, right? And then the second thing is they will go ahead and pile on the expenses, get an office maybe, or the second mistake is hiring full-time resources, right? Big mistake. And the third biggest blunder that will happen is your business model. Most service companies, and this what you meant is a service company, right? Unless if you want to develop a product on your own, which is a total different story, because you have to bear the cost, because you won't have revenue, right? When you're developing a product until you put it to market. So let's say you're launching a service company. The If you look at most of the companies just being successful as software companies, these companies who've reached tier one, a major reason for their business model to be successful is that retainer payments. Retainer payments are, guaranteed monthly income, right? Example, client X will give me $5,000 a month to do their product development, maintain it, right? So I get a guaranteed income of $5,000 a month, so which is a, a revenue of like 60,000, yeah, $60,000 a year from that client. So you have the fixed income. Then you can not pile up, then you can manage your expenses. So then you know, okay, for this project, I get 5K a month. I can hire 2 resources for $500 each. Let's say $1,000 each. So it's 2,000. I have a direct margin of $3,000, right? Yeah. It's guaranteed. Your income is guaranteed. A lot of people, if you have retainer projects, you can go for it, right? And even when you're doing it, do it in a very lean way is my recommendation. I'm supposed to be doing this, saying this, but don't go and register your company first, right? Don't go and even create a brand for it. Don't even spend time on that. Spend time on landing your clients on that retainer model, right? So not always this retainer model would work, right? You may get fixed projects, which is still fine, but make sure you run it in a lean way. Even example, don't hire full-time resource, rather pay them per project, right? Say, look, okay, I got this project which is $6 million. We'll both of us will do it. I'll take care of the front end, you take care of the back end. I'll take 4 million, you take 2 million. Okay, right, let's do it. No costs for you. It's because you are doing the work. Let's take a different example. You're not a developer, right? You have two guys, friends, or maybe even a smaller startup, they are developers, right? But you get a client somehow because of you speaking, or somehow you get a client. You say, okay, we need to build something like this, but you need to be like you're working for me. How much do you want? They say, okay, 4 million. Then you go to the client and say, arbitrary figure like that. You figure out the buying capacity of the client, and there's a story there. And then you take the project, they will do it for you, and you take a margin of 3 million, which is a great model, right? Again, a very good model that exists, that already exists. A lot of people are doing it very successfully. And the third way is basically you have your own engineers, like your staff who are being paid a salary. Let's say you have a team of 5 engineers, each of them gets $1,000 salary a month, $5,000. You get a client who can pay a total of $30,000 for this project, which takes 5 months. 2 engineers, do the math, you're still fine. So be careful when you're launching this company. Go first with the income, right? Don't think about the word company, right? Do this as an extra sort of income, and once you're stable, once you have fixed incomes, then you can convert it into company. For product heaven also, I ran it for a very long time before I actually thought of converting into company, because it's not an easy thing to do. All right, I hope I answered the question. What are the best ways to get clients? Okay, now this is a very, very interesting question. Now, this is a hard question to answer as well, because there is no right or wrong way to get clients. You can't get clients. It's very tough to get clients by running ads. It depends on the size of the clients also, right? If you want to be doing 1,000 rupee logos, then you can run a social media ad and get it, right? But if you want to be landing larger clients, again, right, depends on the size of client. Is my first answer. Let's say you are offering websites, right? Then you can have a price point. You can create some pricing tiers, right? Say 100,000 package, 150,000 package, and you can advertise. Websites, whatever, like you can probably get some conversions on social media, but again, it's tough. You need to spend money on that, and it's very hard. If you want to get conversions from social media marketing, then you have to do things like actual Google ads and SEO, which is going to cost a lot of money. especially if you are going to be landing larger clients. Mostly, it has happened. This first client landing is the most important thing, right? In most cases, if I look at the history of a lot of startups that I have mentored, sometimes it's a lot of luck that they land their first project, right? Sometimes, for example, they worked in a particular company and the client got really happy with them and then go ahead and give it him in on a freelance capacity. Careful, it's not a good thing to do, right? Never solicit projects for companies you're working for. But basically have a good portfolio, have a good LinkedIn, have a good GitHub account, right? Things like that. That is a good way of being known to others as these guys doing development. And then some guy would reach you and say, hey, can you develop uh, start doing some freelance work, right? That's again one of the important way that companies start, smaller companies start. You start freelancing individually as a developer, and then that freelance engagement you would speak to the client and convert it into a longer term engagement. So there's really multiple ways, but I'll give you one because I don't believe I gave a good answer, because it's a hard question to answer. I would rather give you guys a little bit of advice. More than focusing on, one of the bigger mistakes that small engineering startups do is they try to offer anything. They say we develop everything: mobile apps, that web apps, desktop apps, websites. Rather than that, try to come up with a unique offering where create a bit of a competitive because in most companies they have a lot to choose from, no? Because you are going with a smaller company, your price points are going to be low. There's a lot of companies like that, and you can't, it's harder unless you have that opportunity to go ahead and land large client apartment like at once. Most cases you would start with a smaller client. For the smaller clients there are a lot of options, so it's important to create a unique model, right? And for productive, one example, a model I created was that whole product engineering thing, where I said, look, from ground to end, not just the development, but actual product vision, I will control it for you, right? Because I had the skill set, I could give that to the client, just like that. Or it could be you've specialized in actual mobile apps, right? You have few apps in the Play Store, you know that process, and this is what we do. Now that's something that you can maybe, that's a good piece of advice that you could probably follow, right? Focus on creating the specialization and don't try to do like jack of all trades. It's a very hard to convert like that. um yeah, I hope I answered the question. With an information systems degree and some internship experience, how easy would it be to get a job in the field of data science and ML in about 4 years? Yeah. So ML, okay, that's an area which I didn't actually speak. So Surge actually acquired a company in data science about 4 months ago called Trebea. Essentially, I hadn't worked with data science before, to be honest. And with that acquisition, I got a lot of insights into it, where we are developing some cool products for the US and Canada. Smaller compared to the others, right? It's a data science and ML, more than technology background, more of a statistics background is important. But having said that, I have the same theory as for development as well. It's a field, the ML and data science field is a little bit more, okay, let me rephrase, a little bit of different theory. Data science and ML field is a field where you need a little bit more theoretical knowledge, right? Compared to engineering development, right? You do need theory for engineering also. You need to know the right design patterns and the frameworks. Yes. ML and data science, you need to be a little bit more versed on the theory, right? I don't care what degree you have. Information systems, yes, certainly it's a tech degree, right? And of course, with the internship experience, specifically if you have experience in ML or data science as the internship, obviously. But even if you don't have, right, um, you'll have to gather that theoretical understanding, right? And figure out early on. Now, when it's a industry like ML and data science, which is relatively smaller than development or UX, an important thing you need to do is uh, figure out where your target is, right? Where you want to land, right? Which are the companies that have data science and ML, because it's less. And then based on what they do, start gathering that knowledge, right? Or even if you have plans of going abroad, overseas, figure out what market are you going to. Let's say you want to move to Australia or to Canada or to Estonia, wherever it is. Figure out the companies that are doing it specifically, gather that skill set. It's a little bit harder, but definitely viable, right? Would be my answer. What is the best business model for service development companies? I think I answered that question. Um, definitely have definitely don't. A lot of people, a lot of service companies have a product, but careful when you're developing a product, right? It's a good way. What I'm saying is very less products have been successful. I'm not discouraging you. What I meant to say is be careful when you spend money on developing products, right? When you're developing products, always go very, very small releases. Platform, right? We do very short sprints, 4 weeks. Is important. So again, I won't go into detail, but my point is a lot of people do the mistake of putting resources on products and somehow paying those salaries of those employees. That's not a very good business model. Focus on developing. My early answer, service company retainer model is the best business model, right? uh, how do you do the retainer? As I said, right, you yourself do it with a friend, or you take the business and you outsource it. That would be a really good option, right? But the problem there is you don't really have anything as a company, right? You're just basically broker, right? You're an agent. Again, that's a model that exists and it's successful, but that's the problem with that. So I wouldn't say that's the best. I would say the best is the retainer business model for the service companies is definitely the most important thing. What's the difference between SC, DevOps, CTO, tech lead? How does the salary differ? It depends on this. These four that you asked is totally different. Huh? And when it's totally different grades. The SC, tech lead, CTO, DevOps is again in the same. Again, DevOps is a track, but let's say entry-level DevOps guy would have similar salaries to an entry-level SC. Depends on the companies. I would say the accepted rates, to answer your question, SCs, I would say right now about 500 to $1,500 is the range. Yeah, even $1,500 if you're really good. CTO gets definitely three 2000 to 2000 to 3000, yeah, 2000 to, yeah, around $3,000. DevOps, same range as I see, could be about 700 to 1500 $2,000 entry DevOps, and these are good tier one companies, right? So different salary ranges, but uh, yeah, for example, the BA track would be a little bit different. Product management track, a little bit lower than the tech one, but again, similar rates. Okay. I don't know if I have more time, guys. A lot of questions are there. I am an undergraduate in electrical engineering. I couldn't choose computer science because my GPA was enough. Since I love CS, how can I pursue it further? Not a problem at all. Learn by yourself, right? No other answer for that. Simple answer. You can learn by yourself. I can't answer your question, the whole answer right here, but maybe you can, reach me directly. I would love to give you some pointers, but figure out the right tech stacks that has more potential. I think I answered that question too. Start learning it, start researching about actual job vacancies that are there, understand different structures from, for example, different companies have different career levels, like associate software engineer, senior software engineer. There are different tracks. So understand those, understand what are the expectations, start learning on yourself. Not a problem that you are in the electrical engineering faculty at all. Okay. Okay. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap up because it's almost 7 and I had to jump off to another session. Yeah, I hope you guys learned something good. good today? Guys?
Yeah, give me a second. I
No
think
problem.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, thank you again, Mr. Jahanujasinghe. So I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to Mr. Jahanujasinghe for accepting our honorable invitation today. Please accept this digital token of appreciation from us.
Thank you so much. I'm going to take a screenshot of this. Thank you so much.
Now I invite all our participants to switch on your cameras to take a quick photo as a memory.
Yeah, let's take it quick because we have all the time. So
Shall I count then?
yeah, go ahead.
Okay. There are two screens, no? First screen, 3, 2, 1.
All right, Namni, you can go ahead. Okay.
Thank you. Thanks.
I suppose you can hear me, right? I consider it an honor to deliver the vote of thanks on this special occasion. First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Jehan Vijay for his brilliant session. I suppose team for being the supporting pillar behind all our hard work. Student Activities Committee for being an immeasurable support for our team. Finally, I'd like to thank you all for participating and making this event a success. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sahan. By and by, we have come to the end of this unique session that explored the essence of know your niche for the computing stream. With the hope to see you guys with another informative session, we now sign out of today's session. Thank you very much. Stay safe and have a good day.
See you guys.